and then it sold it off to companies, particularly that were foreign owned. And these companies control electricity, it controlled water, it controlled telephone, it controlled the harbor, and it controlled land. So when you as the port had all of these things in it one time, then the St. George's, God rest his soul, and the Haywoods, etc., took these pieces out. They raped the country. It's like this restaurant. What you do is you buy it, then you start selling all the tables in it. And all of the things that you need for the restaurant to function is gone. So once those are gone, why are you still here? Pretending to be a restaurant. The main difficulty here is that none of these companies were ever subject to the same regulations that the rest of the country was subject to. None of them. I'm going to freelance a bit because I don't want to get tied up with what I have written. Because some of these things all of us know. The blasting that's happening at Bahama Rock is despicable. Queen's Cove houses are breaking down. Even people in 8 Mile Rock feel a shock. Bahama as well. It is amazing that these things are happening and no one is doing anything. We cannot allow that to happen. The PLP from 2009 onward has to be an activist organization the way St. Lyndon and those saw it as. Now I wasn't here, but people like Mama Lou and Mama Gold and everyone else here, you all know the way it was. These were men who stood up and said, you can't do it like that. They weren't taking no for an answer or you got to get away from here or whatever. They stood firmly. They said it the way they saw it. And that was it. But what it is that we had a very good opportunity to see this island develop into a hub for industrial activity. It never happened. You all are made to pay taxes, those who live in Freeport. You're made to pay taxes. And then when the hurricanes came in 2004, the port could not answer the hurricane. Months on end, they could not fix the electricity. But our caring leader, Perry Christie, and the PLP in its caring stance, said, you know something? That's our Bahamian people in there. We can't wait for the port to do what the port is supposed to have planned before. What we will do instead is we will fix it. I came down with Mr. Christie and a team of other people shortly after the hurricanes had blown through. And I remember standing up alongside Mr. St. George. And I will not take this from him because he demonstrated to me a level of humanity that I didn't think anybody in the port had. And he had a look of deep concern and pain. And he came alongside me because we had our little babs and our little fights because he wanted the LNG plant to be here and I didn't want it to be here. And he stood on the side of me and I said, boy, I said, you all really got done badly here. And he said, yes, yes. I said, well, you know, you always said that the port has very, very good plans and is well planned and is better planned than any other city or town in the whole country. And he looked at me and he said, I know I said that, but I'm now realizing that it's not true. He said, because we cannot fix the problems that are here. He said, we can't do it. He said, if we are to do this, it is going to take us months and maybe even years. And he said, that's why I'm here. He came to the meeting that Perry Christie came to, right here at the police station down the way here. And he basically admitted to me, standing on the side there, worried that this place that he came to love is in the state that it is because the organization that he was a part of never really intended to do any of what it promised in the agreement. But I believe, and I say this as a man of God, that he atoned for whatever sin standing in that room that day. He atoned for it. And so this is not me attacking the personalities, but the organization, the institution. And that organization and institution has now taken things to a totally different level. The social order, ladies and gentlemen, of our country must be kept in the forefront of all developmental efforts. Naturally, this can only be achieved if we first know what the social order or standard was. In the context of which I now speak, we must reassert ourselves to the precept of Bahamians being first. And I know that you've heard this terminology many, many times before, but we really have to mean it. And if we do this, then we will be able to remove the scales from our eyes, and we will be able to see a number of things that exist that can be undone. And these things, ladies and gentlemen, that can be undone immediately. Amen. For example, the act, there is a legislation, there's a law that was passed on the books in 1993. 1 year after the FNM took over, one of the first things that they did was to extend the period by which the port would have tax exemption and be able to tax you on what they have been exempted from. So we already know where the head of the FNM is. They granted 22 years on top of what the port had already had. We didn't kill them yet, let's kill them now. It was passed under the FNM, not us. So one of the first things we can do, you all can go to convention, pass a resolution or make a resolution be passed to repeal the Freeport Act by which that extension took place. Repeal it. Repeal it. And the point is this, and this is the beauty about it, is that we are not in government, we are in opposition. We don't have as many people in parliament as they do, but they have at least 4 people who are from Grand Bahama. And they are human. They feel the pain. If you grab Kwesi Thompson and ask him what he thinks about the port, he can tell you. Don't mind, see, this politics is sometimes you got to cross over the line and grab 1 or 2 fellas. Or encourage them to take vacation when you pass in the legislation. If they ain't there to vote, they ain't there to vote. And if we could take 3 out of the bucket, and we make sure all our eyes there, I think that someone do the mathematics with me, we may be able to pull it off.
Yes, you will.
And you don't need to have the government to table the legislation. You just need a member of parliament. Any member of parliament can table any legislation. Just stands up and say, the Act of 1993, I put this thing forward, etc. We have many people in parliament who learned how to draft legislation. We want to get rid of it. That's what repealing is. That's just a technical term for it. We want to get rid of that act that granted the port that extension.
That's right. That's right.
Make the port pay the money. And then, before it is that anything else happens, there are 3 categories of people that you all need to understand that existed, as far as Freeport is concerned, that existed by law since 1955. 3 categories of people. One is the Port Authority, which is the company. That's all it is. The other one was the Bahamas government. The third one, the licensees. The licensees are everyone who lives and do business in Freeport. The extension was never supposed to happen unless the licensees agreed. Those of you who have businesses and stuff in Freeport, you all agreed? Were you all ever talked to? No. The PLP, under Perry Christie's leadership, had this consensus leadership. That consensus leadership meant that before we passed significant legislation, we went and we tried to get an understanding from people whether we were heading in the right direction. In 1993, most of you who were around when Mr. Hubert Ingram was our chairman and was a part of our party, we know what kind of fella he was. And he took the same attitude to be the leader. He did what he wanted to do, didn't care what anybody else thought. So the law, that is the law now that I'm telling you all that you all should encourage people to repeal, actually was unconstitutionally passed. Because you all were entitled